Welcome to another edition of What Saith the Scriptures with your host, Harley Howard. That's me. And we're going to continue in our verse by verse study of books of the Bible. And this afternoon, we're going verse by verse through the book of Isaiah. And certainly want to thank those of you who continue to follow along with us here live, and to those who will follow along later. We're going to wrap up chapter 36 and get into the 37th chapter. We're looking at the review of the coming invasion of Judah. Actually, this is part 2 of that message. And thank you again for taking the time to be with me here. Tomorrow, for those who are part of the Committed 100, at 10:30 in the morning, we're going to continue in chapter 15 of the book of Proverbs. So be sure to be ready for that. And speaking of which, those of you who are not subscribers, the first thing you need to do is hit that subscribe button right there so you can be updated on everything that we're doing. You can be a subscriber. Then you need to click that bell icon that's on the page. And when you click that icon, click all the way up to the top where it says all. Now, I know a lot of different people who monetize their pages. When you click that bell icon, there's like $sign or whatever. They start wanting to collect money, or they have a little heart with money. I don't do that. I'm not into monetization of my pages at this point. I don't foresee that is an issue. So if you click all you're going to get is every single thing that any notification of anything that's posted on our YouTube page. So be sure to do that. And if you don't mind, and those some of you already done, if you click the like button, that would be a blessing as well. Chapter 36, and I find it very interesting. I thought about that before we started getting on the air, is that if you look at 2 Kings, especially chapter 19, you will find Isaiah's name there. And so in the proper interpretation of the book of Isaiah, it has to include all the events in 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. It has to, if it's going to be properly interpreted, because Isaiah is not just giving us a history lesson, he's giving us a lesson where he was a part of it. So that's very important. And as I said last time, I thought about summarizing it, then realized, of course, that would be a wrong thing to do, because this is part of the history of Isaiah and his prophecy. So even though the events are written in 2 Kings and also 2 Chronicles, I think it would have been a far disservice for me not to just include all this as a part of the record of Isaiah, because it is. It's in his prophecy. And so rather than summary, we're going to teach it all. Now, we know that last time, and I suggest that you follow along. I'm not going to do a long review. You can go back to last week's sermon and you can see for yourself part 1 of this particular section in chapter 36, that Sennacherib, who was in Lachish, he had surrounded Jerusalem, all the cities that were already taken over by him, and he sent Rabshakeh and some other of the gentlemen that accompanied him to tell King Hezekiah that, well, in our vernacular, pretty much, we're coming to get you, kind of thing. It's nothing you can do to stop us. And no matter what you do, you're building a little piddly little double wall. That's not going to help you. You know, we have 160,000 men already surrounding the city, and we've already taken over every place else. We already got the northern kingdom. They're under captivity. And what do you think you're going to do? You don't have any troops. You don't have any horsemen. And if you could afford it and get 2,000 horsemen from my master, you don't have 2,000 riders, chariot riders, to ride the chariots of the war horses. So what do you think you're going to do? You got nothing. And all this we have already concluded was to just bring total despair and distrust in the Lord, more particular, and in the man that God had used to help encourage the people. That was King Hezekiah. And that's your brief summary. And so you see that Eliakim and Shebna and Joash, and these were all part of the servants of Hezekiah. And they're trying to get Rabshakeh to speak in the language of the people, actually not to speak in the language of the people, but to speak in the diplomatic language. And Rabshakeh said, why do I want to do that? I want everybody to know what's happening. So they say in verse 11, then said Eliakim and Shebna and Joash unto Rabshakeh, speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in the Syrian language. Well, we understand it. Speak not to the Jews' language, or to us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall, which is crazy. I mean, really, that's kind of crazy. Now, don't speak to the people on the wall who you're trying to discourage. Speak to us in the Syrian language and diplomatic language. We can understand it. You don't need to tell them everything. Rabshakeh said, verse 12, hath my master sent me to your master and to speak these words just between us? Hath he not sent me to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you? I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? My master sent me to talk to everybody, all the people on the wall, including you. So this isn't some kind of a negotiation here. We're coming to tell you, we're coming to get you. It's over. What are you talking about? The message was for everyone who would not surrender. They would eat their own excrement for food and drink their own urine for water unless they surrendered. And Rabshakeh knew all too well, of course, that by destroying the people's confidence in God and in Hezekiah, he would be successful in causing their surrender. Verse 13, which is where we left off, then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language and said, hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. So now we're purposely going to speak to everybody. Thus saith the king, let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you. Now, without any question, Hezekiah was and has been a great leader of the people of Judah. In fact, I said before, he was the best king they ever had. And the people had no reason to abandon his leadership. None. He had been with them, and he's been the best king they ever had. The worst king was coming, which was a result of Hezekiah, but Hezekiah was the best king that they ever had. But that leads to the point that Satan's primary target is spiritual leadership. We always have a bullseye on our back. That's no question. And if you're in any kind of spiritual leadership, you can bet your bottom dollar that there are people aiming at you. It doesn't matter. If you're going to pick this up and teach this word, I don't care where you are, who you are, what you are, why you are, whether you're in the biggest arena or out in the wilderness like myself, you're being gunned. I've had my share being in a lot of the public arena. So I think for me, and this is a personal thing, I could be wrong now, but I don't think so. I think that my days in the public arena are pretty much past. That's just me saying that. I can't, you know, just for me, the public arena that I had years ago compared to that's okay. That's what I'm talking about. I think those days are behind me. Of course, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Either way, Whether that door opens or not, or stays closed or not, I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing, and that's all I do, regardless where I'm at. But the point is that Satan's primary target is spiritual leadership. And I could say a lot about that now, but I don't want to divert too far from the teaching because I realize that a lot of alleged spiritual leadership in this day and age was placed by Satan in many so called churches, which aren't churches in the first place. That much is also certain. You can't tell me that the literally tens of thousands of men that have been removed or tolerated and then removed from the highest offices of so called church work all the way down to the sticks, that these men in their filthiness and vileness were always qualified or were qualified to begin with. I don't believe that for a second. I believe as long as so-called churches are going to operate outside of the structure of what God says, they are operating on their own. They don't operate with the blessing of God. And so since the people are wrong, the leadership is going to be wrong because you're not looking for God's leadership, because if you did, I don't think you'd exist in your current state. I think you want to do things God's way. So Satan's primary target is spiritual leadership. So those who are doing God's work and God's bidding, they're always going to be a target. And if you are not careful and you live with that knowledge in your mind that you're a target, you'd be quite foolish. When I first pastored Family of Faith, I always had the notion that I was always a target. I never rested with the thought that I wasn't. Even when I became a believer and started working in Sunday schools and other areas, I always knew I was a target. I was a target from pastoral leadership, so called, on down, because I knew that the only thing I was going to do was teach this. And I knew with the traditions that I ran up against, you're never going to survive without being a target if you're going to really teach that word. But having said that, I never thought of myself not being a target. So I was always very mindful. Now, people looked at me and they didn't think so. They would hear me talk, they would look at me and go, blah, blah, blah. But in my mind, it's my head, so you don't know that. I could tell you, but you won't hear it or you don't believe it. But I always looked at myself as a target. Someone says, well, do you still do that today? Definitely. I'm still doing work of the Lord. What do you mean? Even a bigger target? Because I think I have a bigger mouth than I did years ago. And the platform is still public, and maybe even now, potentially more than ever. God has always given me a door where I've reached a lot more people apart from the facilities than in the facilities. And as that happens, you become Satan's gonna start gunning for the small people that have been hiding. We're not hiding. It's just that, Satan goes for the bigger target because you get the bigger payday that way. But he's still gunning after everybody. I mean, there's no doubt about it. His objective is to cause you to lose confidence in the leadership that God has placed over you. That's what was happening with Judah and Hezekiah and the people. The intent of the enemy is to send his people over and tell you, look at the overwhelming odds against you. There's no way that you could succeed, no way you could win. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He's not going to be able to deliver you. Well, Hezekiah never said he was going to deliver them. That wasn't Hezekiah's job. Hezekiah was the reported one who would deliver them. And that was Isaiah, who talked directly from God, or spoke directly from God, and who spoke to God. So again, he's trying to take out spiritual leadership. And if the people were mindful of everything that Hezekiah did for them, I don't think that would have happened. They would have trusted him. As we saw last time that Hezekiah spoke, the people were confident. But now they look at the things that Rabshakeh was saying and the surrounding forces, and they start losing confidence. So we'll see that at the end of this chapter today. Satan will do that in many ways to discourage you from following your leaders. First, he will attempt to cause you to forget the faithful leadership that you've already experienced. That's no particular order, but that's what he does. It's like, no matter what you do, people have very short attention span. You could serve them faithfully forever, and there will come a time where they will forget you ever taught them anything. That's Satan's success right there, where you served the people of God. You did exactly what God told you, and they know it. But for some reason, and it's not some reason, it's Satan, they listening to him, they will not acknowledge that or act like it doesn't really matter at the particular time, but they're forgetting everything, willfully forgetting, got their eyes on the wrong stuff. Then he will attempt to show you that the leadership doesn't work for you. Well, you trusted this man or man, and look at your condition right now. How could you say that these people have done X, Y, and Z? Why would you let these people deceive you? Look at your condition. They don't work for you. So that's what's going on. Verse 13. Excuse me, 15. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord. Stop. No, let's keep reading. Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. First, we got to get rid of the people's trust in the spiritual leadership that God gave them. And then you need to connect the failure of what they're looking around them, the circumstances, to Hezekiah and the Lord. So they're going like, don't let Hezekiah tell you that the Lord's going to deliver you. Hezekiah can't deliver you, and don't let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to Hezekiah. Don't listen to Hezekiah's God. Look at us. Listen to us. The evidence is here. You're toast. That's what's going on. Don't trust in Hezekiah as a person and in what he told you concerning the Lord. Don't believe it. Just come right out and say it. Satan's target is to get you to lose confidence and to forget or to reject what spiritual leadership has taught and is teaching you about the Lord. The leadership's responsibility is to turn the people's hearts to the Lord. Let me just get stupid here for a second. If Rabshakeh has already concluded that we're coming to get you, and surrender is the only alternative, why in the world should I bother caring about what you think about me trusting in the Lord? I'm not going to trust you, so I have to trust the Lord. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to listen to the Lord. But such was not the case. Our responsibility is to turn your heart to the Lord. The people's responsibility is to believe the word of the Lord no matter what. That's the responsibility. But again, as we'll see in the next chapter, some very interesting stuff. Verse 16, hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah. Don't let him deceive you. Don't listen to Hezekiah about he's going to deliver you. The Lord's going to deliver you. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to him saying that this city will be saved and will not fall into the hands of the Assyrians. Don't listen to anything. Listen to us. Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria. Now listen to the king, the great king of Assyria. Make an agreement with me. Buy a present. Come out to me. Eat ye every one his vine, every one his fig tree. Drink ye every one the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a big fat devil-filled lie. That's what's going on. Listen to us. Don't listen to Hezekiah. Don't listen to God's man. Don't listen to his telling you the Lord's going to do. Don't listen to the Lord and what he's going to do. Listen to the great king of Assyria and just make me a present. No, no, don't listen to the man of God who blessed you for years, who told you nothing but the truth. Nope, listen to me, the king of Assyria. Make peace with me and come out to me. Make me your blessing. Bless me. Come out to me. You can have whatever you want. That you don't have to eat your own excrement and drink your own urine. You can have your own vine, fig tree, and cisterns, wells of water. All this to the full if you would just bow down and worship the great king. The land that you'll be going to, let me tell you about it. Here's the brochure. Let me tell you about the land you're going to be going to. It'll be exactly like the beautiful land that you squandered away, which makes no sense if you're acknowledging that the land they're going to is like the land they already had. Why would they want to go? They already have what you promised them. See, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When you're discouraged, you lose common sense and reasoning. You don't ask yourself the question, well, why this if this is what we already have? You don't ask those questions. You're so scared of what's going to happen. Shaka painted a beautiful picture of captivity. It's not called captivity for nothing. It's called captivity. No grass is always greener on the other side. Satan always makes death and bondage and captivity look so much better than what they already had and squandered in their foolish rebellion and stiff-necked condition towards God. Here we go again, verse 18. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Beware, don't fall for it. Has any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? The answer to that question is no. I mean, it's like they're surrounded, and the man, Rabshakeh, says, look, all the people we conquered has said their gods will deliver them. Well, which ones? Has any of the gods of the nations delivered his hand or land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Which one? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arphaxad? Where are the gods of Seraphim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who are they among the gods of these lands have delivered their land out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? So as far as Rabshakeh was concerned, gods are gods. And Jehovah is no different. Yahweh Elohim is no different than any other idol. There's no distinctions. No distinction. No difference. He asked the people to consider the gods of the other nations who they defeated. No other gods delivered them. What makes you think, Judah, that your God is any different? Everything on the surface seems to be Exactly right. You see no hope. They saw no hope. If you had 160,000 troops, 180, 170,000, whatever, surrounding you, and yeah, and you're building a wall which is worthless against the host of one of the most brutal armies ever in the history of mankind, yeah, you might be discouraged. I think we get discouraged for far, far less than this, over really nothing. Satan's ultimate goal is to make God less than he is. Statements like, well, we're all serving the same God in a different way is polytheistic and paganistic and demoniacal, all nonsensical. It makes the only God less than who he said he is. He is not like any other God. You don't, and we'll see that in the next chapter. You don't get to say we all worship the same God in a different way. No, you don't. No, you don't, and I don't. I know what you're talking about. I worship the true and only God, the only wise God, the only living God. I don't worship whatever your idols to destroy the confidence of the people towards the one true God and his leadership and his word brings joy and delight to the enemies of God. And the enemies of God and his people, Satan, the enemy of God. So, I mean, all the confidence is being challenged. Verse 21. But they held their peace and answered him not a word. For the king's commandment was saying, answer him not. So Hezekiah told everybody, do not respond to what you hear. And so no one on the wall answered Rabshakeh. Now, no one knows what went on in their hearts. Nobody. At least they didn't abandon what Hezekiah told them to do. Then came Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, that was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph, the recorder, to Hezekiah with their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rabshakeh. I think I don't need to hear anything from the people. I think the representatives of the people have already made it clear that they were terrified of what they heard. Because these people, Eliakim, Hilkiah, and Shebna, Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah, okay, these are all you got the scribe, the person's, the recorder, they call him the recorder. He's the scribe we talked about months ago. He records everything, what was said, etc. Okay. And you got Eliakim's over the household, all right? And so they're all just in great fear. I don't mean to laugh, but it's kind of wild that they got their clothes rent and they're all terrified of what Rabshakeh said. And these are people that primarily were over the people in Hezekiah's stead when he wasn't there. So if they're kind of terrified, I think it might be safe to assume, and I'm only making an assumption because it really doesn't say it, but one thing's for certain, they're terrified. Okay, the clothes rent told them the words of Rabshakeh. So Rabshakeh continued to berate the God of Judah and the leadership of the people. Again, Satan's ultimate goal and objective is to make God to be less than what he claims to be, to discredit his godly leaders for the express purpose of exciting fear and unbelief among the people. If you notice, in Second Chronicles, this is interesting. In Second Chronicles account, I won't turn to it, Rabshakeh is attacking the exact words that Hezekiah used to encourage the people. So Satan takes the very words that the leadership says and use those words against them. That's a work of the devil. That's not an accident. That's a planned effort by the enemies of God to cause God's people to turn away from God and his leadership. If there's one lesson that Family of Faith taught me, one of many lessons, I think one of the greatest, maybe the top 3 lessons that I learned from Family of Faith is that an entire professed church are ready and willing in an instant to listen to what the devil says. They're ready and willing to abandon everything. One thing I've learned about people, about professing church folk, they have no real commitment to God. A lot of words, lot of talky, a lot of words, no commitment. None. None. They're willing in an instant to give up everything when they face the first few moments of trouble. And all they need to do is go, wait a minute, this man been teaching us the word of God forever. He's been committed to the word. He's kicked out wolves, fake sheep, everybody. He's done nothing but teach us. He's been with us. He's helped us, prayed over us, prayed with us, whatever. But here comes trouble. He ain't nothing. So don't tell me anything about church folk. I've had my fill of church folk. I know more about church folk than most you could ever hope you never deal with. So please, I get it. I get it. By the looks of Eliakim and Shebna and Joah, the words of Rabshakeh took some effect. Obviously it did. They were terrified. They tore their clothes out of distress and anguish. This was a serious problem. And so they report to Hezekiah everything that Rabshakeh said, every single thing. Now we get into chapter 37. I don't think there's ever been a lesson where I actually finished a chapter of Isaiah in 2 sermons. That's never happened. And then to start another chapter, that's never happened either. And it came, but they're connected. And it came to pass when King Hezekiah heard it that he rent his clothes. I think it's safe to assume that if the leadership of the people had all torn or rent their clothes in response to the words of Rabshakeh, and although the text says the people didn't answer him a word, I'm going to give my worthless opinion. Them folk were terrified, okay? Because everybody who's leading the people, they just tearing their clothes. Hezekiah went one step further, and he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth, went into the house of the Lord. At least he went there. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests covered with sackcloth unto Isaiah, the prophet, the son of Amos. So now, suddenly Isaiah is important. We're going to get to that. And so they sent him to Isaiah. So again, this chapter connects with 2 Kings chapter 19. This is actually 2 Kings 19. So when Hezekiah heard the words of Rabshakeh, he tore his clothes, put sackcloth, ashes on his head, sign of deep despair and affliction. While Hezekiah went to the Lord personally for his help, he sent Eliakim, Shebna, and the leading priest to the man of God, Isaiah, for a word from God about this situation. Always find it interesting that when trouble strikes, then the man of God is often sought. Then he's sought. Let me say something about some of the principles that I believe we have not learned from ignoring the Old Testament. Number one, no order in particular. If these folks were following the Lord in the first place, there would have never been any need of calling on a word from the Lord from Isaiah. If they were just following the Lord in the first place, they wouldn't have to get a word from the Lord from Isaiah. Number two, again, we need to be reminded that the only reason why they were in this predicament in the first place was because of them. It was because of their own stiff-necked and hard-heart rebellion against the Lord and his word and the prophets. Now, suddenly, they want to call on the prophets whom they all resisted. Oh, now you want to hear from the Lord. Oh, now let's call old Izzy now, huh? Now he's important to hear. He told you before it happened that you were going to be in this very condition. Number three, these same people ignored the prophet Isaiah and all of the word from the Lord through him in the first place. Not only did they ignore the word of the Lord and the Lord himself and Isaiah, but they continued boldly and arrogantly against both. Did not believe that the Lord would do what he said he was going to do. Didn't believe it at all. And you, irony 3b or 3a, the northern kingdom was already captured. They saw the northern kingdom be captured by the same folk and still didn't repent, didn't think it was going to happen to them. Number four, none of these people were innocent people. They were in trouble because it was the result of the aforementioned sinning against God. They got what their sins deserved. See, we don't like that. That's too bad, because that's exactly what happens. Number five, like so many people, the man of God is only sought as a last resort. That's really disgusting. Now we're interested in Isaiah. Now we're interested in Jeremiah. Now we're interested in Ezekiel. Now we're interested. Now. Never take responsibility for your own actions getting you in the predicament that you're in. Nope, won't do that. Just get us out of here. Now he has value when we have come to the end of ourselves and our sinfulness. Now we recognize his value. Nothing's changed pretty much but the date and the players. Same thing. Verse 3, and they said unto him, thus saith Hezekiah, this day is a day of trouble and of rebuke and of blasphemy. For the children are come to birth, and there is no strength or not strength to bring forth. So when it talks about this day is a day of trouble, this day spoken of in this verse was described as a woman who has a child that is ready to be delivered, but doesn't have the strength to deliver the child by herself or anyone to help her. In other words, death is imminent unless we get help from God. They knew it. So the people of Judah knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that if they did not get help from God, it was over. Doomed. They couldn't do anything by themselves to stop Assyria. They couldn't. Nothing. I mean, the building of the wall, okay, but in actuality, when they saw Rabshak and the boys, these huge forces coming with them, I think they had a different view about the wall. What is that? Is that a dust storm? No, that's chariot horses and armies, and we're in deep trouble. It appeared that the threats troubled Hezekiah as well as all the other people. Obviously, it has. Verse 4, maybe the Lord thy God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria, his master, had sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that is left. The what? The remnant that is left. Told you. Only a remnant survived the captivity. Told you. This ain't it forever. Told you. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah. Now, I want you to notice what the prayer did not say, and that's important because it showed me that this remnant was truly repentant. Okay. We already described clearly their attitude before their captivity. Lord, please deliver us so that we would be rid of our enemies, so that everything will be fine for us and that we can be happy and live. No, not at all. The prayer had nothing to do with Judah directly, but the prayer and the subsequent answer to that prayer was to bring glory to God. That's how I knew that they were truly repentant. I believe that no matter how terrified they were, their hearts were right. And this, again, I said this that God was going to bring them to the point where they had no means to do anything without Him. That's what He did. They would have to be 100% dependent upon the Lord. And He did that. They demonstrated not their own request for deliverance, but that the Lord's name and character was being dismissed and blasphemed by Rabshakeh and by the king of Assyria. And this is what the servants of Hezekiah brought before Isaiah. Verse 6, and Isaiah said unto them, thus shall ye say unto your master, thus saith the Lord, be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherein the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Don't be afraid of the words of Rabshakeh. They were terrified. Again, look at verse 6. Isaiah said to him, thus shall ye say unto your master, thus saith the Lord. He's talking about Hezekiah. Don't be terrified or afraid of the words that you heard. Don't be afraid. Why? The Lord heard everything that was said by Rabshakeh. He heard it. Going to respond to it as well. As he hears everything in the thoughts of all people continually. I mean, there is no time that God doesn't hear and know, as this book says, here our thoughts are far off. He knows. He already knows. Whatever we're thinking, he already knew before the war began. Whatever we're going to do, whatever we're going to say, he already knows. See, that should cause terror and fear to really worship God, really order our thoughts and our words. I just don't think our response to God really gives us, like these people, like God has got, we got nothing. If we don't have God delivering us, we got nothing. They show 101% dependency upon God. Without such, they know they're done. Verse 7, behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor, and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. So Isaiah told the servants of Hezekiah, you tell him this. This is what the Lord said. Behold, I will send a blast. Word blast means a spirit in him or an agitation. I'm going to send uh, a rumor, a blast, uh, something that irritates him, and that's going to cause him to go back to Assyria because he heard something, hear what was going on. Something's going on. It's going to cause him to go back, and something was going on. Okay. Now, remember that we said last time that king of Assyria was at Lachish. Okay, Lachish was only about 30 plus miles from Jerusalem. He was getting close. He was just as close to there as Rabshakeh and the armies. So he's there. He's coming. He defeated all the fenced cities. He's at Lachish, getting ready to come. God sent him he got word, he got irritated. God said, I'm going to send him a spirit and to cause him to go back. Okay. Again, we are witnesses to the fact that God controls everything, even the thoughts of man. He put in Sennacherib's mind an agitation, a troubling thought. Let's put it that way, a troubling thought and or a rumor. That was God's doing. I'm going to end at this point. Just like God hardened Pharaoh's heart to accomplish his will, even though on the surface, in fact, let me add, and Nebuchadnezzar thought that he did this and he did that and he did this, and God made him crazy for 7 years. Okay. Even though on the surface, all of these men and many others we didn't even mention thought that they were doing everything on their own. They all rejected the true and living God. In these examples, God showed them who he really is. I'm going to leave you with that. God will always show us who he is. He is the true and living God. He is the only God. And people need to stop worrying about this one thing or another thing and, this bunch of nonsense happening here and happening here. I keep telling you folk, but you ain't listening. I get a kick out because people they just don't want to accept the fact that the voice of the wilderness is telling the truth. I told you people 1,000 ways to Sunday don't trust the media. I told you they cannot be trusted for anything. That it is in the nature of all the media to lie. That's all they do is lie. But you don't listen. This silly little foolish nonsense that went on yesterday, the no kings garbage. Yeah, one news organization, I'm not sure it was MSNBC or whatever, but one of those major organizations had showed a video, I think it was MSNBC, showed a video of hundreds of thousands of people in one city, showing them this is the crowd that turned out for the No Kings rally. Found out it was a clip from 2017 or something totally different. I keep telling you people, but you don't listen. Keep getting the verdict, keep getting played. It's incredible. I'm like, people just get all agitated. They all lie. Every one of them lie. They control the media and the narrative, and they're trying to control us. They all lie. None of them are without the capabilities and desires to lie. They all play. They all play us. You got to stop believing them. Especially those of the liberal variety. All of them are liars. They take clips and they just spin and cut and paste and AI rhymes with lie. And that's what they do. But y'all keep on listening to these fools. And Fox, well, I wouldn't have a fox as a pet. I mean, they're corrupt too. They're all corrupt. The only news media that you can depend upon is right here. Because every day you can read Romans 1 and say, yep. And today we're going back to the news that happened yesterday and 1,000 years before and 1,000 years after. Romans chapter 1 through chapter 3. Right here. That's your news media right there. All a bunch of lying scallywags, but y'all keep being played. I'm done. I'll see those of you in the Committed 100 tomorrow for chapter 15 of our verse by verse study in the book of Proverbs. Once again, thank you for clicking the like button. Please, if you haven't clicked the like button, click the like button. Even if you don't like it today, click it. You might like it tomorrow. And there's a subscribe button right there. If you want to subscribe to this channel, click the subscribe button and subscribe. And also, there's a little bell icon. Click that, scroll up, select all. That way you'll get everything that this voice crying in the wilderness will teach you about the Word of God. Every single thing. And there are other things coming too, God willing. So again, thank you very much for coming here and for following us. And as always, I pray that something is shared that will be a blessing to your life. And don't forget, both testaments talk about the Word of God, especially Proverbs and Paul and Timothy. It makes me wonder, did he get it from Proverbs? In Proverbs, it talks about reproof and rebuke and correction. Funny, Paul used the same words. Instruct is the same thing. It's another word that's used in the Old Testament to talk about the Word of God. So don't feel bad if something is shared and said and you get a little upset about it. Well, just think about it. God is trying to instruct us all. So give him the glory for it, thank him, and then change your mind and heart. All right, I'm done. Bye.